All right, let's hit that intro. Sorry if it's loud. All right. Was that too loud? Was that good?
That was great. Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah, it was made by my friends in the band I Am Mook. So I appreciate them sending that to me.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, I'm a little jittery this morning, had a lot of caffeine, but I'm excited to chat with you both about your music and your band. And yeah, I am joined by Labor 12. How are you doing, gentlemen?
Doing all right.
Doing good.
Yeah.
It's a Monday.
Same.
But, we're
if you
doing
want
this instead of working, so it's all right.
Yeah. If you want, you can go ahead and introduce yourselves to the audience if and when they hop in here, and we'll hit the ground running.
Cool.
Nice. Okay, well, I'm Ross. I am rhythm guitar and singer for Labor 12.
And I'm Jacob, and I'm lead guitar, backup, vocals, acoustic,
Occasionally piano.
Yeah, kind of a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Sometimes if he's real good, we let him play the triangle.
Yeah.
So who's the older brother and who's the little brother?
He's the older. I'm the younger.
I love when there's siblings in a band. It creates a pretty interesting dynamic sometimes.
Yeah.
It's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah. We were actually talking about that the other day. Siblings, not necessarily in the same band, but I don't remember the other one's name, but Clint Lowry from Sevendust, his brother's one of the guitar players for Seether.
Yeah.
And I was like last week years old when I learned that. So.
Yeah, I love those guys. They're great. I actually saw Seether last year or the year before, just about 30 miles from town. And then Sevendust earlier this year with Static X on that Machine Killer run that they're doing.
Yeah.
First time getting to see both of those bands. Sucks that I couldn't see Static X when Wayne was with us, but Sevendust blew my mind.
Yeah. I'm actually seeing them on Wednesday.
Yeah. Got the gear from the show on and everything. Yeah.
I can tell you band. Static X with Zero is virtually the same as Static X with Wayne.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And we all know who Zero is, and he does a great job with Static X too. Mm-hmm. Like that dude does double time every night on their tours. It's impressive.
Makes Very me impressive. Tired.
Yeah. So we got the band introduction and introduce who you guys were. And I wanted to start it off by asking where it started with you guys. I understand that there is a previous band, and yeah, I'll let you guys take it from that, and you could make it brief if you want and summarize it. And
okay. Well, as far as a previous band, like it had been 10 years. So really no correlation between the two. But ironically, talking about Sevendust, we were in San Antonio, Texas in 2019. I think it was March.
Yep.
And Jacob had gotten us and my wife tickets to see Tremonti and Sevendust.
Yeah.
And at that point, we were in the proximity of some rough stuff. And part of what we were running into was I hate going to shows and not being able to play. So it's just torture. And I'd been out of the band scene for 10 years. And we had kind of talked about having a band. And I, sorry, the loop is killing me. But I had talked to Jacob about starting a band. And he was like, no, I don't really want to do that. Like, it's a lot of drama. It can be a lot of headache. And so after the Sevendust and Tremonti show, we were driving home, and I would totally took advantage of him.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, we have to do something. He's like, yeah, we do.
Yeah.
So we used that post-concert high to get this thing started. So it was because of a Sevendust show, effectively, that we were able to form.
Yeah.
All hail Sevendust.
Yeah. Long live the dust.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll add to that. When we started talking about it, I told Ross, I said, this is my standard for what we're doing. I don't want to babysit people. We're all adults, you know. Kids, I did it when I was 15. It was like herding cats because everybody's like, oh, I want to do it. Oh, I don't want to commit the time. And I was like, I'm not going to beg anybody to do it. I'm not going to fight with anybody to do it. We will mitigate as much drama as possible, but I don't want to. Those things ruin bands. I don't even want to deal with.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So, and here we are.
Awesome. I love the Sevendust how Sevendust ties into this, and you hear the influence in your guys' music too, and I love that. And again, I'm a new fan, as you guys know. I pretty much, when I watched the video and heard the song, I hope I pronounce it right, Psychophantic.
That's
it. Nice job.
Okay, good.
Most people get it wrong.
You got a gold star.
Yeah. I was like, well, geez, these guys are freaking, they're sick. I love that sound. Like, there was this like thickness and like this how do I want to put it? There's something to the riff to that song, and just like the weightiness in general that it had that drew me in. And I'm sitting there, I'm watching the video, and I'm like, this, like, who thought this concept up and everything? And I'm like, okay, so what are the chances that I reach out to these guys and see if they want to chat about, your music and everything, that they would say yes? Because I don't have any history with you guys, as in like listening to you for any amount of years, right? Literally just found you guys and just immediately wanted to get you on here. And so, as you know, I sent you guys out that message, and pretty much I don't think it was too long after that you're like, yeah, sure, let's we're on vacation right now, but we get back and we can talk. And I was thrilled. Like I've actually went almost 3 months once trying to get somebody on here, and it hasn't shaken out so far because they're quite a bit bigger, and their management, talking back and forth how it goes sometimes. But the process with you guys has been super smooth. Like it very, very pleasant, and not that anything's been unpleasant with other bands or anything, but I was elated and just really excited that you guys were up to it, because you just never know.
Right.
So as a new fan, as you know, that song's what got me into your music. And then right from there, I went to listening to the album just over and over and over and over again. I'm like, okay, now I need music, new music. And we'll get to that at the back half of it if you guys want to talk about what's in the works. And so segueing from that, the sound that you guys have, was it always how you guys were going to sound, or did it kind of take different shapes and forms or whatever as it went on before you released anything out into the world?
So the way that typically works out is you record demos, you start tracking for the album, and during that process, you have a producer who helps kind of form it into something that, in our case, is more commercial. Like, I've released at this point 3 albums. First one I did myself. It wasn't great, but that was 2006 or so, and for a home recording, it was fantastic. It got regional airplay on terrestrial radio.
That's impressive.
And then second album we recorded, and Kinjay from Static X ended up producing it for us, and he had a friend mix it, but it never sounded the way I wanted it to sound. And there was a degree to which you kind of have to let things go once you turn them over to somebody like that. But this last round, it was a hill I was going to die on, and Jacob was willing to die on it too. But a guy named Evan Rodeniche produced it and engineered it for us, or mixing engineered it. We recorded everything ourselves.
Right.
But he was a guitar player for Powerman 5000, like 5 or 6 years. He produced a few of their albums. He works with Lacey Sturm. Does
I love her.
Yeah.
And so I reached out to him. I'd played a few shows with him years ago, and we just became friends. And I was like, hey, tell us what it's going to cost. We're not even asking you if you're willing to do this, because I'd had the discussion with him before. I was like, if I write another album, you're mixing it, because you have the sound we want. So we did all of this with that in mind, and we got our first mix back, which was Mirror Mirror, and it still blew us away.
Yeah.
And Jacob's actually got a funny story about like immediate disappointment listening to it.
Yeah, so we were actually at like a family funeral wake kind of thing. Ross's wife's family has a cousin that was big in the music scene here, so he had passed away, and they were doing this big memorial thing for him. And Ross was like, hey, if y'all can come out to this venue, I have the first mix. So I'm pretty sure we all threw our pants on and hauled ass. Actually, I was out of town.
They were mad at me for withholding the track, but I wanted for all of us to hear it together for the first time.
Yeah. So we're sitting in our drummer at the time, Randy. We're sitting in his car, and we start listening to it, and I'm like, okay, all right, okay, I'm listening to it, and like I'm not thinking about like the fidelity of it, like how thick it sounds, all that stuff. I'm like, we get done with it, and like part of it made me want to cry. The other part of it was like, we don't sound like anybody. What is this crap? And then like about 30 seconds after that, it hits me. It's like, oh, this sounds like us.
Yeah.
Like we are us. We're not Sevendust. We're not Alter Bridge. We're not Tremonti. We're not Seether, Breaking Benjamin. Go down the list. We're us. And after that, it was like, holy crap. And I think it was part of that, like the disconnect that I was like, I can't believe it's us, but also Evan's really good about taking exactly what we do and enhancing it, but he doesn't change it so drastically that it's like, well, that's not, it's not what you hear from a lot of bands that started out that were like, well, we did our first album. Somebody wrote it for us. Somebody, they produced it and changed things on the fly, and it became our sound. It was us times 10.
Right.
And man, it was awesome.
So to answer your question, yes and no. That was the sound we always wanted, but it wasn't necessarily the sound we always had.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it took some very experienced ears to go. Basically, we gave him a lump of clay that was Labor 12, and he made it into monsters.
Yeah. And funny enough, you mentioned you like Sycophantic a lot, and
yeah.
It's probably my favorite on the album as well. In the demo phase, I would have thrown it in the trash.
I was the only one that wanted it on the album.
Yeah, he was the only one that wanted it on the album. And we went through the whole process to record it and stuff. And I was like, okay, but like in the demo phase, it just didn't have the punch. And I was like, okay, it's very Breaking Benjamin inspired, like original Breaking Benjamin. That rhythm chug at the first. And so I was just kind of like, I can take it or leave it. And I remember we got that mixed back. That was one of the last ones we got, I think. Closer to the end. And we were in our bass player's car listening to it because everybody's got sound systems in their car, and you got to car test it. It's just the nature of these things.
Yeah, road test is important.
We're all sitting there, and that chorus hits with that arpeggiator in there, that that's in there, and we were like, "What is this?" And like changed everything, and I was like, dude, that's my song now. And we didn't really expect it to hit that hard. And then when we released the album, people were just like, man, I love this. I got so many messages like, dude, this song is like catchy and it got me. And so it's really funny because I tell people all the time, I was ready to get it back and be like, nah, maybe we'll hold on to it and throw it on a later album. And then it is what it is. So.
Well, I'm so glad that it didn't get cut from the album because it's vital to the flow and the order of the songs and how it all comes together that I feel like if it wasn't on there, I'd feel like something was missing.
Right.
Like it would still be just this great, impressive record because I think it's an impressive, first record for sure. but without that song, like I feel like it's just an integral piece of that puzzle for the record, because I have it written on here that like you have your intro into the record, and then Wasteland hits, and I'm just sitting there. I was in my car and I was heading home from work, and I'm just like, just like this. It's I love the. I almost, when I was in my car, I was like, well, why didn't they start with Psychophantic at first? But I don't think it would have made sense how the intro was, right, and how it segues into Wasteland. But the order of the songs on the record, I think, is perfect. I can't imagine any other order. I've shown a couple of people at work, and they say the same thing. They love how it just grabs you. Intro, and then Wasteland kicks in. It's like heavy and it's fast paced and right up their alleys. And I think a few of them said they're going to go and buy the album off of Apple. I don't know if they have yet or not, but
nice.
We
love it.
Your way.
They can actually buy legitimate CDs. We did an album pressing. We have 300 CDs. We have a handful of them that are signed. So here's a plug. If you want to go to our website, yes, you can actually buy a physical CD. And we did that not because we were like, oh, CD sales, we're going to make money. We did it because we've always wanted a CD like that. And it is legit. Like, it's wrapped. It's like you get it at Best Buy or your favorite record store. It's got a lyric book and a thank you, and like every bit of it is designed, and it's like a jewel case. So we're junkies for physical media still.
I don't want to segue too far away from music, but don't you just hate how it's getting away from that? It seems like it's so digitalized these days, where you don't have that booklet experience anymore. And I remember when I was younger, that's what I lived for when I bought music. Is I loved taking off that wrapper or the wrap and opening it up, and it's like that new smell.
Yeah.
It's something I missed. I still buy physical CDs, so it's never left me. But I think this newer generation is missing out. And I hope it never goes away completely. So
you add to that, if somebody gets mad at Spotify or Apple and they're like, you know what, I'm not putting my music out there anymore. Well,
it's gone.
Good luck. You don't get to listen to it anymore.
You kind of have to have it up on digital platforms. It's just the way.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to touch, but I wanted to ask about the overall process for making the album Monsters, and we could kind of compress that up if you want, because we did touch on some of that already. So when the record itself, talk about like some of the process, like whether some songs were harder than others to flesh out and get right before you reach that point where you're like, okay, this is ready to go.
The only song I remember having a lot of trouble with was Wasteland.
Mm-hmm.
We got to the studio, and it was one of the last songs we recorded vocally. And the verses, I just didn't like them. The melody, like lyrically, everything was fine, but the melody, I was just like, this feels so phoned in. And that's something I've always struggled with. Not necessarily that it's a problem, but I'm worried about it being a problem. I don't want this to be the first song people hear on the album and them go, oh, okay, well, this is obviously
maybe it gets better.
Yeah.
Well, it's like the first episode of any new show. The first episode just sucks usually.
Yeah, the pilot.
Yeah, so we were in the studio, and it was just like lightning struck, and I was like, okay, roll on this. And then it was like, okay, that's it.
Yeah.
So
I feel like we went through 3 or 4 iterations of the verse melody before it got to what it was. And we were playing it live. So like we released the album in November 21. But our first show was like July of 2020. And so a lot of these songs were getting played the demo way because we didn't know. And that was one that we struggled with was, I mean, not like guitars or drums or anything, but Ross had told me he was struggling with, he's like, I just don't, it's not doing what I want it
I'm
to.
not feeling it.
Yeah.
And,
So
and
you were-
it's hard to quantify, but and we, like you said, we've been playing the demo versions for so long that it's hard to hear anything else. Like that was one of the struggles when we got the album, is it was like, this is so the integrity was the same, but some of the stuff was so different that we all had to relearn the music.
Yeah, the dynamics. He introduced a lot of dynamics. So a lot of those stops that you hear, that there's like a beat stop, or we come in on a 2 or something like that, especially in Suffocate. I know that's in there. It's those were the things that were like, okay. And we actually for a long time had vocal cues in our ears because we play with click and all that stuff, because we have all of our sampling, and we want it to feel like a Sevendust show or a concert.
We want the live performance to be as close to the album as possible.
Yeah. Except for changing the things that we can do live that you just can't do on an album. And it was tough learning those stops, those breaks, all that kind of stuff. But
yeah, to your point, Wasteland was the only one that was tough.
Yeah.
It was like, technically it's a very hard song. Melodically, I just didn't really like the verses, and I don't know how many days I showed up to the studio an hour and a half before he got there, just trying to get my guitar parts recorded.
Yeah.
And because if you've ever recorded an album, it doesn't matter how good you are. When you hit that record button, only one brain cell decides to work.
Yeah. The rest of them flee for their lives.
For me, it's the one that likes memes.
So you kind of get derpy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Very derpy.
So what's cool about the album and us making it is that we actually have 40 some odd videos on YouTube of us making the album. So there is a playlist somewhere on our channel that is like the making of Monsters, and it starts from day 1 and goes through day like 40 something, which we quantified it by day. Some of those days we were in there for an hour. But you can actually go watch the whole entire process and hear all the demo stuff, because all the backing music we used for the videos was the demo songs. We didn't have mixes back, and we didn't want to release mixes like preemptively. So yeah, it was I almost can't watch them anymore just because of the music. It's not bad, but after you get the good stuff, it's hard to go back, right?
Yeah, well, I haven't watched that stuff yet of the making videos and everything, but I actually love hearing how songs were in like those rough stages, because I sometimes actually prefer demos over the studio, like mixed and mastered, kind of polished up versions, because for me, I'm the kind of guy that I kind of love leaving some of that roughness in it, So I'm definitely going to go back and watch those and take that all in.
Yeah. Actually, if you go to the very first video we ever released, it's the demo of Suffocate. It's still up on our YouTube channel. Yeah. Wow. I mean, I'm just going to leave it up, so you can hear like, this is what we had, because we needed to introduce ourselves to something.
I think you can buy the demo version.
Yeah. I know it's on YouTube for sure. But one of the things that we didn't want to do, that we see a lot of bands do, is they're like, we're new. And everyone's like, where's the music?
Yeah.
Like, well, we don't have any of that yet. We didn't want to do that. So we were like, you know what? A demo version's better than nothing. But it's cool listening to it. And then now I'm like, that spot's missing. Oh, wait, Evan did that. Oh, this thing's missing. Oh, Evan did that. So but it's cool. I'm kind of the same way. Actually, earlier this year, Alter Bridge had their 20th anniversary, and they released a demo version of Broken Wings, which was their actual first song they did. And so I'm kind of the same way. I'm like, how did it change? What is it? What was it? What is it now? Kind of thing.
Yeah, it could be kind of I find it all very interesting. I've always been kind of a scaredy cat as far as like trying to do the music thing, and at this point I'm not sure if it's a possibility. I mean, it is if you want it to be, I guess. But that's kind of why I started the podcast, as a way to kind of do music, but making music, and also just getting those connections formed and everything. But I'm gonna go into it sounds like it's a very hard kind of like touchy song to kind of ask about. But The Last Goodbye, that song, it hits like a truck, you know, and Everglade, those two songs are probably the songs that made me want to bawl like a baby.
Yeah.
You know, so you want to touch on those two songs and maybe give some backstory to it? Because I personally would love to know.
Yeah, so it's interesting you ask about The Last Goodbye today. We lost our grandmother to complications from a car accident in 2016. It was January. And she was the glue that held the family together. And what happened was she got T-boned, and a few days later she was getting ready to leave the hospital, had a pulmonary embolism, stroked out, and was virtually brain dead up until the last few hours of her life. And going into surgical ICU and seeing her that way was nothing if not horrible. And I opted to be in the room with her when they took her off life support. And it just one of the worst experiences of our lives. And I never forget the last words she said to me. We were taking some paperwork up to our mom, some real estate stuff, when they were getting ready to go home from the hospital. And we're both big fans of Airplane, the movie. And I'd walked out and popped my head back in and said, I want to tell you both good luck. We're all counting on you. And my grandmother said, and don't call me Shirley. So that's actually an Easter egg in that song. In the second verse, the word Shirley is in there for that specific reason. And that song, it was hard enough to write. It was hard enough to record. But with that song, I had the last good photo anybody had of her on my iPad, and I just put it up because I didn't want to lose the essence of what the song was about. And that one was tough. Like a lot of tears in that song. There were a lot of things that happened while we were recording this album. Mirror Mirror was another one of those. Our brother had gone into rehab for suicidal ideation.
Right.
And he's given us permission to talk about this, so I'm not spilling the beans on anything we haven't talked about. But the day we recorded vocals, we weren't going to record vocals. But the booth wasn't set up. Nothing was even ready for that. But a friend we had grown up with ended up committing suicide. And I got the news over lunch, and I called Jacob and I was like, set the microphones up. We're recording this today because we have to. And then, you talk about Everglade. That was written for our other grandmother. Jacob wrote that in 2012? 2011.
And that's her voice in the intro?
That's our grandmother's voice. Yeah, other grandmother, paternal.
Yeah, so that was her. That was my 25th birthday. And I don't know, my friends call it the quarter life crisis. I don't know, it was like the first adult birthday I had that I was like, is this what life is? Like, nothing was great. Work was slow. We run a business and we weren't making money. And probably there was some girl involved that typically be, making decisions on my emotions. But our Meemaw, who that's about, called me, and man, I couldn't even pick up the phone to talk to her. But until she got dementia, she called every single one of us on our birthday like clockwork. When we were in school, she called us before we were at school. Once we got older, she just called us when she could. But she left me that voicemail. and I still have it. Still can't listen to it. But man, that was the last evidence I had of her being lucid, because she has dementia now, and she's had, I mean, it's been pretty severe since probably 2019, 2020-ish. But I was just going through, I have this Google Drive folder that I call happiness, and it's just different stuff. You know, it's a lot of it's actually now screenshots of people texting us after the album, you know, and they were like, man, this is the thing it did for me. This, and I keep it as a reminder that even when I don't feel like I'm 100%, I've still done things to change people's lives. And it's not like I'm bragging, right? You know, it's not any of that kind of stuff, but we're all human.
We didn't get into this band just to have fun, just to be a happy-go-lucky bar band. One of my favorite quotes was Rob Thomas when he was on VH1 Storytellers back in the early 2000s. Somebody asked him, "Why don't you write happy music?" He was like, "I don't feel like writing when I'm happy. I feel like being happy when I'm happy." So kind of the same thing here. But as far as Everglade goes, he wrote that song in 2011 about another family friend who she'd had Alzheimer's, right?
Yeah.
And passed away. And I asked him, I was like, "Can we take this and repurpose it about Meemaw?" He was like, "Absolutely."
I did not want to at first. I did. It was, I don't know if I ever told you this, but I did not want to revisit that song. I mean, I wrote it when I was like 17, 18 for a lady that we went to church with, who, super nice lady. And our thing that we had was Elvis. I love Elvis. She loved Elvis. She actually had a lock of Elvis's hair that she got from his barber somehow. Like, she was one of the, like, in the 50s, you see like the videos of women going crazy. And I just remember one day walking up to her, and I could tell she knew, she was supposed to know who I was, but she didn't.
Just a little bit of recognition, but just not enough.
Just not enough, right? And so I wrote that song about her, and then Ross comes to me, you know, in 21, and is like, "Hey, can we repurpose that song?" Man, my knee-jerk reaction was no, I don't want to touch it. It is what it is. Leave it alone. But I had to think a lot about it, and I was like, yeah, you know what? It's music. It needs to evolve. If you ever listen to Sevendust or see them live, they talk about it. They were like, you know, this song was about this 20, 30 years ago, but you guys have evolved it. And so I kind of took that to heart, and I was like, okay, do what you want with it, but I can't promise that I can play it, sing it, or perform it.
Yeah, so we ended up, I asked him if it was all right to rewrite the verses. Because he was in high school when he wrote it. And there's a degree of
it's so bad.
Forced martyrdom that goes into a lot of high school music.
Yeah, it's what emo bands are still doing, but we all stopped at some point.
Like the verse was kind of monotonous. He didn't really like it anymore, and so I tried to be as gentle as I could, and just like everything I did, I ran by him first, because if he wasn't going to be happy with the song, it wasn't going to happen. So we ended up, I rewrote the verses, and he was like, "That's it.
So much better."
I love it.
Feels like a song now. It doesn't feel like choruses that I had to find something to do between.
So in the midst of recording the album, our grandmother, she had moved to Lubbock,
where we live,
2 hours away from where she spent the last 60 something years of her life.
Right.
And she was living with her parents. We were working in our parents' basement, and we still do. And part of that was so we could help keep an eye on her as her dementia got worse. And in the midst of recording, she answered the door a couple times when nobody was here, and it became quickly apparent that she has to have somewhere to live where she has round-the-clock care. And so, and add to that, her mother had severe dementia, and she
Alzheimer's
told
as well.
it told our parents, if I ever get to that point, put me in a home, because I don't want to be the burden on y'all that my mother was on me. And she loved taking care of her mother, but she's always had an aversion to being a burden on somebody.
Right.
So to comply with her wishes, my dad and his siblings made the decision to put her in an assisted living. But her dementia was so bad at that point that she didn't understand. And she was incredibly upset. I don't know what I did. I promise I'll do better. And I had a conversation with her that's one of the hardest I've ever had. And I sat down and I told her, Mima, this isn't because you did anything. She had fallen and broken her femur almost where it would have clipped her femoral artery. And the surgery was risky because of the location. And I told her, we want to put you somewhere where you're going to be safe. This is not because you did anything. We just couldn't live with it if something happened to you.
Yeah.
So, and I know you well enough that you wouldn't want us to live with that. And that calmed her down for a minute until the dementia reset and she forgot the conversation. But we were in the middle of moving her into the facility when we were recording that song. So if you listen, I think it's the first chorus. He couldn't get through it.
Yeah.
Like it took a few takes and then I don't want to say muddled, but that's kind of what it was.
Yeah.
Like voice breaking up,
Struggle
crying.
bust. Yeah.
And we got done. I hit stop on that take and he was like, no, let me just collect myself and I can get it. I was like, no, you can't. That's we're sticking with that one because I would rather have a musically rough take that has all of the raw emotion in it than a sonically perfect take that
loses some
we
of that.
sacrifice the intent of the song to make it sound better.
Oh yeah.
And
100%.
so like you listen to it, you can hear the struggle. And that was one of the hardest days we had in the studio.
Yeah.
I mean, songs like that always are songs that I almost appreciate most out of anything that I hear from, bands that I listen to, because you guys, I'm sure, are aware that some people have like this funny idea that musicians are wired differently with like their emotions and what they go through in their day-to-day lives is different from like someone like me and what I go through. Right. And so I've always had such a huge amount of respect for, musicians that write from that really real human place and they don't shy away from talking about it.
Yeah.
And so I just want to say thank you to you guys for being that way, because those two songs have a lot of meaning for me, even though my experiences aren't yours attached to them. I went through similar things. Like my grandfather currently, he's showing those signs of dementia and stuff like that, forgetting names, asking the same questions over and over again and stuff like that. And then my mother with her mom, when she had cancer, was in the room and she took her last breath. So the last goodbye, so kind of triggered me right now.
Yeah, we understand. I think the biggest thing is, and I like your point about that, because this whole album is, we call it Monsters because it deals with dementia, loss of life, suicide, narcissistic relationships, abusive relationships, terminal disease, getting
Substance
Swifty,
abuse.
Substance abuse. Swifty is actually not one of those. Actually, I mean, it's about cancel culture.
Yeah, Swifty's about cancel culture.
And so they're the monsters that we deal with, but it's so funny because we also have a series on our YouTube that's like, what do these songs mean? And we did that because people ask us all the time, and it's like, here's a link. But for us, we hear a lot of that people come back to us and they say, hey, my circumstances weren't your circumstances, but this is what this thing means to me. This is what this song means. This is what this phrase means. And again, we do it because we want people to know that music saved us. Music has been there for us every step of the way. And if we can have one person that hears Mirror Mirror and it gives them the deciding factor of not committing suicide, those kind of things, like if it's done it for one person, which it's done it for one person at least, if not multiples that we've heard of, then we did what we needed to. Because the biggest thing about doing this album was that it was we did it for us first, but we did it because there was the things we needed. And then that has in turn translated to a lot of people that are like, holy crap. I mean, we still hear about it. And funny enough, because you found Psychophantic, because we started running ads and we did the music video, a lot of people have come to us and that are new, they're like, oh my gosh, I heard this song, it's so cool. And we're kind of getting some of those messages again, like, this is what it's doing for me. And we love that stuff. We love hearing that. And it's not a self-gratification kind of thing. It's just that, you do all this work to do music, and then you sit back and you're like, man, was that worth it? Like, was the struggle, was the pain, was the arguments that we had in the studio where we were ready to like literally punch each other, were all those things worth it? And you hear stories like this, like you telling us about your grandparents, other people telling us about family members or themselves that have considered suicide, or that they got out of an abusive relationship, or, all those things. And it's a consistent reminder for us to keep going because it is worth it. And 95% of the people that listen to us never give us a response. That's just the nature of music,
Right.
And so we might not hear about it for years or ever, but we know that what we're doing in the struggle that we go through to do it, and the blessing of getting to do it, are worth it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Like, that's music saves lives every day, and it's why I'm so immersed in it, because I went through some awful things as a kid, and so I just escape into it, and it's got this healing just thing about it that it's hard to find it in a lot of other places. It's maybe part of it's just having that connection with people, like, oh, they went through this too, so they understand. It's like feeling heard, feeling understood, and kind of in a way you're being consoled by the music, right? It's comforting you. It's like letting you know, hey, things get better. So I 100% know where you come from and agree with it 100%. And honestly, guys, it's another reason why I gravitate towards the music, because I hear that realness and that genuine quality to it that you guys bring to the music. So I'm aware of it 100%.
Good.
So
I appreciate it. I've never written music that wasn't vulnerable.
Yeah.
And those, like, my favorite bands all write that way.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the bands that people crap on, once they get past the party phase, it's like, well, there's no substance here. So that's something that continues to be very important for us, is we want this to be, it's about our struggles, but we know that our struggles don't only belong to us. Other people have the same struggles or similar enough. Like, Suffocate was written for a girl who died from cystic fibrosis back in 2019. And we've had people tell us that they feel like it speaks to their substance abuse or their suicidal ideation. And so I think being as open, and I keep using the word vulnerable, but that's really what it is, by just bearing our entire souls in the music, connects with people whether they identify with our reasons for writing it or not.
Right. Yeah, 100%, man. I love hearing when. So one thing I hate with music, and I think it exists in every kind of music, but big offenders is like your pop scene and your
Right.
rap scene of those materialism kind of songs that are coming from like, look at my riches, look at the women I have and stuff. Like, I don't identify with that stuff because that's aspects of life that I don't really think are that important or interesting. Like, I want to have money and be able to support my family, my wife and kid and the house that we have and all that. But I want the human experience as far as the real things that you need to care about and pay attention to being written about in music. So that's how it is for me. And see what time it is. Okay, I still got some time. Let's touch on a little bit the monster within and Kenjay and his part in that, because you definitely hear that Static X in that song. And like I said, I met the guy, and he's one of my heroes, and I couldn't believe I was meeting him. And such a nice, genuine guy. He's so humble. He's so willing to talk and just so. Like I said, that gave you guys just like a whole lot more cool points. I saw his name on that track. So
that's kind of what we were going for. But no, I've known Ken, man, going on like 13 years, I think. Guitar player in my last band was their guitar tech for a long time. If you've ever watched the Cannibal Killers live video, he's in the very beginning. He's the one handing Wayne and Koichi their guitars.
Right.
And he reached out to Ken and asked if he would produce our album. And Ken did. And 2019 rolls around and they do the Wisconsin Death Trip reunion tour.
Right.
And I had reached out to Koichi. We drove to Dallas and I was like, hey, we've got tickets. I'd love to see you. I didn't reach out to Ken because with that guitar player, things really went sideways. And I didn't know if those guys hated me, if they would still talk to me. But Koichi had at least reached out on my birthdays and holidays.
Yeah,
so I didn't mind.
He's good about birthdays.
I didn't mind texting him and saying, hey, let's connect. And after the show, finally saw Ken. He was like, dude, I was hoping you would be here. And it was a reunion. It was the first time I'd ever met him in person.
Yeah.
Many hours worth of phone conversations, but I'd never seen him face to face. And so it was one of the coolest reunions that I've ever experienced. And we've kept talking ever since. And so I reached out to him and I was like, hey, would you be interested in putting any, samples or just putting your stamp on this song? And I didn't at first tell him it was about Wayne, because one of my fears with this whole thing was, well, they're just trying to piggyback off Wayne dying.
Right.
Because we've all seen it. And he'd actually had our brother come up with some artwork for that song. And I'd reached out to Ken, and eventually I was like, I can't keep this from you. This song is about losing Wayne to an overdose.
Right.
And like, Wayne was one of my top influential singers. And Ken was like, Wayne would love this because he was so vain. and so
look at that.
There you go.
Oh, I should have worn my shirt.
Anyway, so Ken was like, yeah, I'd be glad to do it. I'm actually kind of getting back into this anyway, because we're writing for a new album, this stuff. And so he contributed. And then I reached out to Tony because I knew Tony handled a lot of their business stuff. And I sent him the artwork and I said, hey, we've written the song for Wayne. We would like to use his likeness, but I don't want to come across as being a cash grab. Like, you guys, I hope y'all know that Static X is one of my top 5 favorite bands. And I don't have favorites, so that's saying something.
Yeah.
But if you don't mind, if I need to reach out to Wayne's family, like this is the artwork, this is the song. If it's not cool, if you're not comfortable with it, that's fine. I'm totally expecting a no anyway. But Tony responded and said, man, it's tasteful. Like it's definitely on brand with how Wayne was. So, as long as you're doing this out of respect, we've got no problems. So we've actually got a t-shirt with a skull with Wayne's hair on it that is,
and his beard and his
Yeah.
chin tassel. Yeah.
But we actually got permission from Static X to do that. And so just having that connection was really cool. Like I talk to Ken all the time. Like I talked to him Saturday night. I sent him a lot of memes. Somebody posted a photo of Jack Nicholson from, I can't remember, The Shining or One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yeah.
I can't remember, but it's him with Wayne's hair.
Wow.
And he was like, wow, I'm saving this.
I'm trying to picture what that would look like.
I'll have to
send it to you. Yeah.
It's awful, but it's hilarious. So anyway, yeah, Ken is one of my best friends. Like, just love the guy to death.
Yeah. And I'm so glad that he's drumming in Static X again too, because I love Josh Freese. He did amazing work with them too, but it's the drumming style that Ken has. It's just, I don't know if I could describe it in a way that does it justice, because I'm not a musician and I don't play drums. But it's almost inhuman the way he does a lot of what he does on the drums.
Yeah.
Like one of the biggest things with Static X, besides Wayne and Koichi's, chemistry, they all had just amazing chemistry, but just the drumming in the band, like it drives those songs in such like a powerful way. And it's just, I've always been so impressed by it. And when I got to see him live do that, like in person, I'm just sitting there looking up at the stage at his kid, just like, this guy's inhuman. Like, how does he do all this? It's super impressive. Just so that's one of my favorite songs on Monsters too. Not just because of Ken and the tribute to Wayne. It's just a great song.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So, see, how am I doing with time? I got a little bit more time. Okay. Before I start wrapping this up, I want to touch on Psychophantic. You could delve on a little bit of the songs, backstory, but I also want to ask about the video, because as I understand, you guys have your own company. You did this yourselves.
Yep.
So I want to get a little bit of insight on it.
Well, the song is basically about narcissistic relationships. I mean, I don't think that meaning's not buried in there very well. Several of the songs on the album are about a specific relationship I had with a guy who, he was one of my best friends, but he just used people.
Right.
And I think one of the most dangerous things about him was he became a Bible beater to abuse people with Christianity.
Yeah.
That's something I hate.
Man, it's the worst, because people like that, and this is universal, this isn't just religion, people who use any platform stance
to weaponize
civil movement, to weaponize their opinions and bastardize the intent of what they're using, some of the most dangerous people in the world.
Oh, absolutely.
And so that's really what it was about. Like he wanted to use me to become a celebrity. And as a front man in the band, you get most of the attention. That's just the way things are. And he didn't like that. So that's the short version of of how that was, but he literally threatened to kill me in 2020.
Jesus Christ.
So yeah, but he was dumb enough to put it in writing.
Yeah.
So anyway, that is what it is. And he provided a lot of good lyrical content for the album.
It's like at least four songs about him on that CD.
Well,
so go ahead.
I was just gonna say really quick that one of the lyrics that stand out to me that I like, that's so true, is that your mind has become a prison for all the times that you let yourself down.
Yeah,
I love that. That line is just perfect. It's like a chef's kiss.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So the actual music video, I pretty much wrote it, directed it, didn't shoot it all by myself, but it's a pun intended labor of love, right? Because we do have a video production company. We've done work for Facebook, Oculus, Pennzoil, Phillips 66,
American Heart Association.
Heart Association. Like we have a lot of clients around. But music videos don't pay. And especially when we're doing it ourselves. I probably spent more money on it than anybody, but I was in LA in January of 23 and seeing a friend of mine who used to work for Netflix, and I was sitting in her kitchen and I was like, I have this idea. And so I actually made the poster for the music video before anything was even really written and sent it to the guys, and they were like, this is freaking cool. What is this? And I was like, oh crap, now I got to write a music video for it.
Well, I'd initially thrown out the futuristic cyberpunk stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
And Jacob was like, man, that's too complicated.
It is too complicated.
No, we can't pull that off.
So we did.
Then he comes back with this script, and I was like, too complicated, huh?
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah. So, it took us, we started shooting it in January of this year. All of the like high-rise office stuff with the bad guy, sending messages and all that stuff, we shot in January. And then we really didn't touch it again until April. That's when we shot the actual performance stuff, which that's the hardest part of being in a production company, is when you have to be on screen. So a buddy of ours drove out from Bakersfield, California. And
you drove.
I drove him.
He
drove I paid him to come out here. And so he like camera operated it, but like I got the theater and all the stuff. And it's funny because it really took on a way more political overtone than I had intended it to, because we wanted it to be about like an relationship. And we don't want to get political with our stuff really, because enough bands do that and it sucks. It alienates one half of your audience regardless of what your stance is, right? So we
Green Day.
Yeah. Oh, dude, we saw the Toadies do it to us. They got here in Lubbock, got booed off stage 2 years ago because they told the crowd to vote a certain way. And we are in what we call the buckle of the Bible Belt. So very conservative place. And they said something converse to that and got booed off stage and then yelled at us for being mad. It was a whole thing. So we didn't initially, like, I'm getting through the edit and it's about to go out and I'm like, wow, this got way more political than I intended it to.
Well, part of it was we in the video world, we are now. We weren't known for our work. Like, that's changed since February.
Right.
But before then, we'd go to these big conventions in Vegas or LA or whatever. And people were like, dude, y'all are the meme guys. Because we share memes like crazy.
Yeah, we're junkies.
And I don't know how many times I got thrown in Facebook jail over a meme that was like, I don't post inflammatory stuff.
Yeah.
Like, if I do, it's making fun of everybody. But like, one of my favorites was a meme that said, watch, Facebook's going to flag this picture of a flower. And it was getting flagged by everybody. So like, I would get shadow banned and, thrown in Facebook jail. So that's part of what Get Swifty was about. But also the Sycophantic music video was like, like, social media is controlling everything. And for a while it was like, that's a conspiracy theory. And then Mark Zuckerberg, what if 2 weeks ago was like, no, yeah, we were censoring people.
Yeah.
Literally
And-
said it in writing.
Yep.
So, so that's kind of what that was about.
Yeah.
But it ended up taking on more of a political stance than it was intended to, like
Which
he
is
said.
funny enough, though. YouTube is pushing it like crazy. Like, it's got, as far as I know, last time I checked, it had like 4,100 views, which for YouTube is insane. You understand, YouTubing is the hardest thing to get views on.
It is.
Like, almost 3,000 of those were YouTube recommends.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
it's not external. It wasn't our people. Now, I think it's two-part. I think one, it presented as political, and YouTube's like, ooh, this will get people talking. Two, when it released, people commented on it like crazy. Just friends of ours that were really excited about it, that had waited because we crowdfunded the music video and started the crowdfunding in like March of 23. And so for it to take like 18 months for it to come out, like, we felt really bad. But it's just the nature of our lives and our work. And for all of us, our jobs and families take precedence, right? So it's like, I want to work on the music video this weekend. Oh, well, my kid broke his arm, or I've got this family thing, or we get contracted for the biggest job of our lives and we're out for 6 weeks. So it just kind of was the nature of it that it took it so long. But it was fun to write, but it was an insane amount of work, and I never want to do it again unless I can just write a check that says, here, but it was a lot of fun, and it turned out really, really, really good. We're pretty proud of it. So
I hated doing this, but it was great.
Yeah, literally,
it's a pretty impressive video. Like, honestly, it catches your eye, and it's very creative. Like, it fits the song really well, in my opinion, despite, it kind of does that whole political thing, not on purpose,
Yeah.
But everything still really works really well with that video and the song. So, I mean, be proud.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
It was, like I said, a labor of love.
Yeah.
Only one, not 12. Though.
Yeah, there wasn't 12 of them. Felt like 12.
So I am right, by the way, about it being derived from Hercules 12.
Yes,
labors.
you are. You are one of the few people that has ever caught that. Yeah. So yeah, it's a fun experience. But if we were to do it again, like, if I could really make it happen, I would do it in like 2 or 3 weeks instead of a shoot here, wait 4 months, a shoot here, wait 4 months, a shoot here, wait 3 or 4 weeks,
Right.
But again, when nobody's getting paid to do it, except for the theater we shot in, obviously they got paid, so they were cool. It's hard to make those things happen volunteer wise, and we get that because we've done short films, and when it's a volunteer basis, everybody wants to do it until they figure out it's work. And then they're like, what? I have to be there for like 12 hours? Yeah. So
hey, it comes with the nature of the job and what you do.
Yeah.
So to start wrapping up, I have a couple of kind of like fun questions that I like to call them, and they're kind of going to be like rapid fire style.
Okay.
Off the top of your head, what would be a dream tour?
Man, I would say, that 2. Tremonti and Sevendust would be awesome.
Yeah.
Or I would love to go out with either Sevendust and Static X or Static X and Soil.
Ooh, yeah.
Ooh. And Soil
Yeah, I would
back
have to say,
too, so that might work.
Do what?
Soil's back, so that could be possible. I mean,
yes, they are.
They did like a 3-date Australian tour, and I was
Yeah.
so mad about that because I couldn't go. Like with Wayne Static, Ryan McCombs is one of my favorite vocalists as well.
Yeah.
he's
I would
great.
say definitely like Alter Bridge Sevendust would be my dream tour. Anything Tremonti does. I don't care if he's singing Frank Sinatra, honestly, as long as we get to play the show.
Yeah, like that guy, everything that guy does is just golden. Like, I've been such a big Mark Tremonti fan since Creed, and then like Alter Bridge. I honestly think Alter Bridge, I favor them over Creed in all honesty.
Same.
But I mean, it is Creed. Basically, it's just not Scott Stapp as the focal frontman, but
Right.
I think they're better.
Yeah.
We're both
So,
Tremonti sluts.
Yeah.
So we get it.
Literally.
Yeah, I saw those guitars and everything in that video that you have. I'm pretty jealous of those guitars.
I might have gotten another one.
Yeah. Maybe.
I'm gonna have to do another
that's
big
all
one
right.
now.
I know, right? All right. Next question.
And then horror films. What's your favorite?
Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
Absolutely.
I think
Yeah.
that's for both of us.
Neither of us are horror movie fans. Like horror movies,
Oh, okay.
I have enough anxiety. I don't need somebody. Like literally, we work in a basement. I can be around the corner. Ross can walk up the stairs and just say, "Hey," and I jump out of my skin. So I don't like being startled. I don't like being under pressure, or
I'm more suspense than horror.
Yeah.
But
Same.
Tucker and Dale.
I liked White Noise, Gothica. But I wouldn't really call those horror. Those are more suspense.
Kind of like Sixth Sense.
Yeah, I agree.
But the only movie that I've seen that really, like on any spectrum, scared me was Quarantine with
Deb from
Deb
Dexter.
Morgan. Yeah, I can't even remember her name now.
Yeah, I remember watching
Exorcism of
that
Emily
and kind of
Rose.
getting the same thing. Yeah.
I don't do possession movies.
No
way, Jose.
They kind of bore me, in all honesty. Like it's hard for them to scare me. Those kinds.
Yeah.
I get more scared watching things like you said, Quarantine or the Quiet Place movies. Kind of got me in a few spots,
Yeah.
So then this one always gets some pretty interesting responses. Describing Labor 12 as a food or a beverage, what would you say it would be?
That's a great question. Not describing me. I know it would be if it described me.
If it was just Jacob, it'd be Dr. Pepper
and chicken
Raisin
fingers.
Cane's.
Yeah.
I
You know what? I feel like Dr. Pepper's not a bad. Like, what do people say? Dr. Pepper is like licking a sexy battery. Is one of the descriptions of Dr. Pepper that I've heard. Like, it kind of hits you, makes you tear up a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's wildly off, but I kind of feel like that's we are 23 flavors.
Yeah.
I know you lean towards Dr. Pepper's your drink of choice. I lean towards unsweet tea because we are slightly filtered, but we didn't add any sugar.
That's fair.
So you're getting the raw tea leaves and water.
Yeah.
When you drink Labor 12 from the fire hose.
Yeah. That's a great question.
So, and everybody in the band actually hates sweet tea. Jacob doesn't really like tea, but nobody in the band likes sweet tea.
My experience with tea has been that I've gotten it when I'm expecting Dr. Pepper, and it makes me mad. Visibly angry.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
so
tea and coffee are my two favorite things to drink. Tea and coffee.
Yeah.
So,
as far as food, I'd go with a medium rare ribeye.
Yeah, I think that's fair too.
We sent it off. We got the album cooked, but it was not so cooked that we can't reproduce it.
It wasn't boot leather when we got it back. Yeah.
Yeah. It's nice and juicy. You can sop up your fries with
the steak fries. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
We like food, if you couldn't tell.
And then, I love food too. I love cooking, so I get it.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And then
we hate cooking,
the last question. Last question is going to be just a simple, what's next?
What's next? It's kind of twofold. We are so recently we parted ways with Randy, our drummer. His job, he had to take on a job that is he called us this last Saturday and was like, yeah, I'm in Illinois headed to Maine. So he's a pilot car driver, so it just wasn't sustainable. So we have a guy filling in for us. We're not exactly sure, and he's not sure either. We don't know if he's going to be permanent or if he's just filling in for us. So we're kind of in a holding pattern as far as nailing down a drummer, and we're in the middle of writing for a new album. Mm-hmm. So the first one, like Monsters, was a lot easier because I had 10 years of being pissed off about things to write about. And now I've got to write about 4 years worth of stuff. But it's coming together. Like the song, the album I don't know that we've said this publicly, but we'll say it now. It's going to have some deep cuts on it. Songs that are 20, 15, 20 years old that we're breathing some new life into, that we've always loved them, but they never got the produced treatment that they deserved.
Yeah.
Proper care.
Yeah, we're digging deep on some of that. But it's going to be hard not to call it Monsters Part 2, because that's really what it is. I don't know that we'll ever write anything that's not, bad experience based.
Yeah.
So.
And then immediately next is we are direct support for Blackstone Cherry this coming Sunday. So
yes, that's going to be a great show.
Yeah, we got to play with them last year. We did a festival that had them, Incubus, Third Eye Blind, Paris Jackson, Bad Flower. We opened that festival, which was like a dream for us. Like
that turned into a nightmare.
Oh yeah, dude, it was so hot. It was like 140 degrees on stage.
Not exaggerating.
Our drummer's cymbals were so hot, we had to have rags to take his cymbals off because they were burning us.
I got blisters on my hands from picking up my pedal board. All of my stuff malfunctioned. So instead of playing guitar, I just had to sing the whole time, and he had to learn my parts on the fly.
Yeah. That was a really cool show. But Blackstone Cherry's coming back, so we get to play with them in a much cooler setting next Sunday. Indoor, yeah.
That's good.
But I'm really excited because I've loved them, since I was in high school. Ross showed them to me. And I was like, these guys are
they're a great band.
I would say they are the closest thing I would say to Southern rock that's still rock. They're more rock leaning than Southern, but they've got a little bit of that twang, and man, I just love those guys.
It'll be the third time I've played with them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
I did a birthday bash with them in Hinder 15 years ago.
Yeah. So those are the next things, just the next album, figuring out what our drummer situation is, and then this show. So
I'm pretty damn excited for new music, and if it could happen, try to come to Oregon.
we get told that a lot, actually, and it's one of those things we tell people. It's like, I would love to tour, but it is so unbelievably expensive, especially when you don't have a label and you don't have the backing. And what feels like a lot to us is like 15 people saying, come to Oregon. 15 people going to a show in Oregon is not going to pay for us to get there or get back.
Unless we sell tickets at $1,000 a piece.
Right, yeah.
Probably.
So it's one of those things. Everybody's like,
those Taylor Swift prices right there.
It's tougher than it used to be to get people to shows in general.
Yeah,
because if their 5 favorite bands aren't on the bill, they're like, no thanks. I'll watch a video of it, or whatever. It's tough. So yeah, we would love to travel, go see some new places. We are working on getting on some of like the bigger festivals, and working with some other bands to do that, because we don't get the luxury of like traveling for 6 weeks. We have a company. Right. Our bass player is a civil engineer. It's just not realistic for us.
He's an uncivilized civil engineer.
Yeah, well, he's a bass player. So it's really hard for us we can't leave for 4 weeks, 6 weeks. But we can play local shows and then travel and play like a day of a festival, or like pick up a weekend tour, with a band around Texas or something. So that's kind of where we're at. But next album is the most highest priority, really.
Yeah. Well, hell yeah, gentlemen. I just want to say that thank you for coming on. It's been one of the funnest episodes I've done so far. Cool. By a lot. It's just been very easy flowing conversation. Like I'm talking to friends, So I'm really excited for the new music. I'm excited for what you guys have happening for you, the show with Blackstone Cherry and everything else that I hope comes after that. And if you do somehow make it in my part of the United States, I will do everything I can to make that show and make it worth it for you. So, I really appreciate you talking with me today.
Of course, man. No, thank you for asking.
Yeah, it's been really great. And again, before you guys go, I just want to plug your guys' socials. You can find them on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. They're obviously on Spotify, iTunes. I assume you have a Bandcamp?
We actually don't have a Bandcamp, do we?
I don't know.
I don't know.
There's a lot of those platforms that we don't find the value in paying for them.
Yeah,
like
Right.
Reverb Nation
That's fair.
and
yeah.
Bandcamp.
Yeah.
It's like we've never made it in the top charts on Reverb Nation because we don't pay to be there, and it's like I don't care.
Yeah, so I don't know if we'll have to look into Bandcamp. It's also managing it all. Gosh, it's its own thing.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, if you look up Labor XII, the Roman numeral 12s, you can find us pretty much anywhere. We have a website.
We got a link tree too.
We have a link tree,
Yeah,
and you
take
can
it
find
over.
all that stuff. So, and for the people that if they want us, if we're coming somewhere near them, sign up for our email list. That's how you're going to get all the information about shows. Follow us on socials, but the email list is probably the biggest one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. I'm going to go and take my kiddo to his appointment in school and have a good day myself, I hope.
Yeah, man.
Well, we appreciate you having us on. This
Absolutely. Yeah, it was a blast.
Yeah, I feel the same. I love doing these, and I'm going to hit you guys up again around the time you got some new music coming out, just so you know, and do another one of these. So you guys take it easy.
Yeah, you too.
And I will be in touch.
Okay.
Awesome.
Sounds
good, man.
Take it easy.